Veterans and their families are gathering in Canberra this morning to mark the 50th anniversary of the end of Australia's involvement in the Vietnam War. It was a controversial and era-defining conflict, and my father Richard was among the thousands of young men who were conscripted into the Australian Army at the time. He was a Nasho, as they were known, selected by a birthday ballot for compulsory service. So ahead of the anniversary, I sat down with Dad to reflect on his memories of war and how it changed the course of his life. Who's this strapping young man?
Oh, I don't know about strapping, but yeah, that was me back in 1970.
21 years old and a world away from the life he'd planned to live. This is my dad, Richard Jeffreys, in the only photo I've ever seen of him in Vietnam.
That was in the lines of 2RAR on the back of a Land Rover.
Nui Dad?
Nui Dad.
Dad, when did you get called up for Vietnam?
I entered the Army in January 1969.
So you were 20 years old then?
20, I turned 20 in October.
What do you remember about being conscripted?
I was somewhat hesitant, to say the least, about the journey ahead. But yeah, I accepted the fact. I thought Australia needed to be in Vietnam at that time. Arrived in Vietnam May 1970.
And what are your memories of that day?
So we flew over in a Qantas flight, landed at Ton Sanut. We were taken onto I think what we called a mini Herc with an American pilot. It was pouring rain. The mini Herc had bullet holes in the roof and the water was dripping in.
Over 11 years, 60,000 Australians served in Vietnam, where they faced the horrors of guerrilla warfare, chemical weapons and brutal conditions. 523 of our men died and around 3,000 were injured. What were some of the harder moments in Vietnam for you though?
When we lost somebody, that was the hardest moment. And that happened, of course, as it does, sadly.
Some of your mates?
Yes.
And what impact did that have on everyone?
Oh, well, everyone was downhearted, of course, but they knew they had to get on with the job.
I'm only 20 years old.
Yes.
You know, that's a difficult thing for a 20-year-old to confront.
Well, I guess it is, but we were well trained. We knew what to expect.
Those who made it home carry mental scars that are still hard to talk about, even to their own children. Have there been negative effects on you for the rest of your life?
Yes, there have been. I recall when I first came back this particular day in the first week back at work, walking down Queen Street, and I walked past and a car backfired and I was in a brand new suit. I just went straight down on my hands and knees onto the pavement. Things like that. Now, when your children were growing up and you had birthday parties, your mother had to blow the balloons up because I wouldn't hang around inside the house in case one popped.
Adding to their turmoil was the social and political dissent they returned home to.
I spent 7 months there. Having been conscripted, I was due for discharge in January 71. So I was flown home on the 3rd of December 1970. We were flown out at midnight at night to avoid demonstrators. They flew us back in at midnight into country.
Because they were worried you were going to be met with angry protesters.
Yes.
That was your welcome home.
That was our welcome home.
Did you feel that negativity?
No, I didn't.
When you arrived
in particular,
home?
I know many of my friends that did.
What about the friendships that you've taken away?
Just true mateship, true friendship. Friendships have been amazing, and unfortunately I've lost some of those friends in the last few years.
For the last 2 decades, Dad has devoted himself to the Coorparoo RSL in Brisbane, organising Anzac Day services.
The sacrifices they've made, the losses they've had, the families who have lost loved ones, they need to be remembered.
The RSL is also where he enjoys the odd 4X with his veteran mates, including Pat Savage and Ron Bird. Ron, what do you remember about the day you were called up?
I guess the most vivid memory is my mother waiting outside for the postman. Mum used to be out there along with some neighbours who were waiting on their own sons to see whether they received the letter or not, and I still have it. It was just a card, basically said turn up there at 7 o'clock on this day, and life changed.
Pat wears a military cross, one of our nation's highest honours, with enormous pride.
This is recognition of a team of 21 mainly national service, against more than 100 Viet Cong, and we survived. The people I served with were extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary.
What would you want other Australians to know about Nashos?
There were 523 Australians killed in Vietnam, many more wounded, of course, in the thousands, but nearly half of those killed were national servicemen. So they certainly played their part, to say the least.
Oh, that's just so special, SJ, to have that moment with your dad and to sort of ask him some of these questions. I know that's not easy for him.
No, it's not. And you can tell, you know, he's very brave and stoic and always has been. But it was really great to have the opportunity to sit down and ask some of those questions because he doesn't like to talk about it too much. So thank you, Dad. Love you and very proud of you. And thank you to all the 60,000 Australians who served in Vietnam too, who made enormous sacrifices that are lifelong. Many.
You're a very proud daughter of him.
I am. Yeah, we love him.
Good on you.
Hey there, Today fans. Sarah and...
What's my name again?
Oh my goodness, Carl.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel, though. Subscribe now for more news, special reports and amazing Aussie stories.
And Carl misbehaving,
Whoa,
of course.
that never happens.
Always happens.
What's she talking about?
Always happens.